In 2023, the Rangers entered the postseason with the 6th worst ERA and 6th worst FIP in the American League, and the 2nd worst ERA of all 12 playoff teams. What drove them to the postseason was their offense, which produced the most runs and the highest OPS among American League teams. Despite some quality individual pitching performances, their playoff team ERA of 3.83 was fairly close to the playoff league average of 3.92 that year. Meanwhile, the 5.7 runs per game they scored were far above the playoff league average of 4.1. While averaging at least 5 runs per game in all 4 of their postseason series, the Rangers took the ultimate prize in 2023. A year later, the Los Angeles Dodgers entered the playoffs ranking 13th in Major League Baseball in ERA and 21st in FIP. What drove them to the postseason was their offense, which produced the highest slugging percentage in OPS in all of baseball and the 2nd most runs. Their team playoff ERA and FIP were worse than the playoff league average, but they scored 5.9 runs per game, went 11-5, and won the World Series despite their underwhelming pitching. Many emphasize the importance of pitching to win in the postseason. However, with these 2 examples, you have to wonder how much more to it there is than that. I'm Gionta from Above Replacement Radio, and today I'm talking about the importance of a good offense in regards to winning playoff games. The common notion in baseball is that pitching, or the combination of pitching and defense, wins championships. However, that belief often makes fans forget about what goes on the other end of the ball. Among the last 8 World Series champions, 4 have led their respective leagues in runs per game, 4 have led in OPS, and 4 have led in OPS+. Meanwhile, only 2 of the last 8 World Series champions have led their respective leagues in ERA, and only 2 have led in fielding independent pitching. And no matter how you feel about the legitimacy of some of the championships that were won, the logic still applies. Also, 5 of the last 8 World Series champions ranked higher in runs scored per game than they did in ERA, and only 1 of those teams ranked better in ERA than runs per game. 2 teams had the same ranking. 5 of the last 8 World Series champions also ranked higher in OPS than they did in ERA, while only 2 of them ranked better in ERA than OPS. Now, it is widely understood that your home ballpark could have a significant impact on the amount of runs you score or allow. The average park factor is 100, with anything above it being hitter-friendly and anything below it being pitcher-friendly. The average park factor of a 2024 Dodgers pitcher was 94, while the average park factor of a 2021 Braves or 2018 Red Sox pitcher was 103. So, we could look at park-adjusted hitting and pitching statistics to keep that balance. Still, 5 of the last 8 World Series champions ranked higher in their respective leagues in OPS+ than ERA+. Now, ERA, especially when evaluating team ERA, can validly be evaluated as a pitching and defensive statistic, as the amount of earned runs being allowed can often be correlated to how many plays the defense can make on balls in play. For a more pure pitching statistic, we may look at fielding independent pitching, also known as FIP, which only evaluates the pitcher's ability to strike batters out and prevent walks, hit by pitches, and home runs. When looking at runs scored per game versus FIP, the offense still reigns supreme in the last 8 years. 6 of the last 8 World Series champions ranked higher in runs scored per game than FIP, and only 1 team ranked better in FIP. 6 of the last 8 World Series champions also ranked higher in OPS than FIP. Some of you may accuse me, validly, of cherry-picking this span. The differences are certainly more extreme over the last 8 years, but even if you span across the last 25 World Series champions, 12 of them have ranked better in runs per game than ERA, 9 have ranked better in ERA than runs per game, and 4 have had the same ranking. Also, 8 of the last 25 World Series champions have led their respective league in runs per game, while only 5 have led in ERA. Despite me pointing out all these teams having better offense than pitching, I don't actually think hitting is more important than pitching. It's just that I don't think pitching is more important than hitting when it comes to winning championships, which is not the common narrative among fans and analysts. As simple as it sounds, you need to score more than the other team to win, and whether you win 1-0 or 8-7, it counts just the same. However, the narrative exists for a reason, and also has its own merit. So where does it stem from? Much of the narrative probably comes from the fact that individual pitchers used to have greater impacts on their respective teams. In 1968, Denny McLain led the American League with 336 innings pitched. His Cy Young and MVP winning efforts helped lead the Detroit Tigers to claiming the American League pennant, which was followed by them winning the World Series. Fast forward to 2022, Framber Valdez led the American League with 201 1/3 innings pitched. He helped the Houston Astros win the division, and his 1.44 playoff ERA helped them to a World Series title. McClain and Valdez both led the league in innings pitched, but McClain's role was larger. He threw 23% of the Tigers' regular season innings, then 27% of their postseason innings. Meanwhile, Valdez threw 14% of the Astros' regular season innings and 20% of their playoff innings, even as a pitcher who led the American League in innings in both the regular season and postseason. An individual pitcher could determine a team's fate much more easily 57 years ago than they do today, so it makes sense that fans and baseball media members would talk about how necessary good pitching was at that point in time. Also, even in the modern game, the starting pitcher will determine a team's fate in a single game more than any other player on the team more often than not. A starting pitcher usually faces 20 to 25 batters in a given regular season game, while a hitter usually only comes up 4 or 5 times. It's why Zach Wheeler, who plays in about 20% of his team's games, is MLB's second highest paid player for 2025. So, when you see the probable starters for a game, that will significantly impact your outlook on that specific contest. Speaking of the probable starters, I believe that often too much weight gets put on those two pitchers. It's somewhat portrayed that they are going against each other, when in fact, they are never on the field at the same time. It's like when people talk about two quarterbacks in football, quote unquote, going against each other. Sports fans in general sometimes find it easier to pin results on one specific individual rather than an entire unit. If Paul Skeens and Joe Ryan were starting the same game, the Pirates would probably have the starting pitching edge, but Ryan versus the Pirates offense might be a better matchup than Skeens versus the Twins offense. This concept was illustrated in the 2021 National League Division Series between the Milwaukee Brewers and Atlanta Braves. The Brewers ranked second in the National League in starting pitcher ERA, and in all 4 games of the series, the Brewers starter had a better regular season ERA than their Atlanta counterpart. However, the Brewers came in with the 5th worst team OPS in the National League, while the Braves had the 4th best. The Braves also had the 4th best team ERA in the NL, which made them very balanced. In that series, Brewers starters posted an excellent 2.29 ERA and 3.02 FIP. However, their hitters posted an underwhelming 527 OPS, and they only scored 6 runs in 4 games, leading to a series loss. If you had just looked at the starting pitching matchups without the context of the opposing offenses, this result would be a surprise. With starting pitchers having greater importance for a single game, they often naturally get the blame for not achieving the team's desired result. And even with relievers, they have much more impact on a single inning than an individual batter can have. So they are also blamed when things go awry. But for every run that's allowed, a run is scored. For every blow-up start, there is an offensive explosion. For every blown save, a team put together a big inning. Sometimes pitchers throw bad pitches and get punished for it, but sometimes bad pitching also doesn't get hit. Other times, hitters hit good pitches, but the pitcher most likely gets the blame. There's a natural yin and yang to baseball, but sometimes it is forgotten about. Oftentimes, what's seen as the difference between a good pitch and a bad pitch is the result of it. But how often do you hear, wow, their lineup came up big? I imagine it's not as much as you hear, wow, that pitcher really choked that game away. I hope you enjoyed this video essay and would love to know your thoughts on the matter. If you enjoyed this, you may also like my 3 other video essays or the podcast I do with the great Daniel Curran. But that's all. See you soon.